In the northeastern reaches of Greece, cradled by the azure waters of the Aegean Sea, lies a land that time seems to have forgotten. It is a place of breathtaking natural beauty and profound spiritual gravity, a place where the modern world relinquishes its grip, and a centuries-old tradition holds absolute sway. This is the autonomous monastic state of the Holy Mountain, known to the world simply as Mount Athos. It is a peninsula of mystery, a repository of ancient secrets, and a forbidden realm that has captivated the imagination of historians, pilgrims, and travelers for over 1,000 years. Mount Athos is not merely a mountain, it is a unique geopolitical entity, a self-governed part of the Greek state, spiritually under the direct jurisdiction of the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople. Its history is a tapestry woven with threads of myth, divine intervention, and unwavering faith. According to Orthodox tradition, the Virgin Mary herself was sailing near the peninsula when a storm forced her boat to seek shelter. She came ashore, was astonished by the wild beauty of the mountain, and asked God to grant her this land as her own garden. A voice from heaven answered, "Let this place be your inheritance and your garden, a paradise and a haven of salvation for those seeking to be saved." From that moment, Athos was dedicated to her, becoming known as the Garden of the Mother of God. To this day, no other woman is allowed to set foot on its sacred soil, a prohibition that has earned it the name the Forbidden Peninsula. The physical journey to Athos is a pilgrimage in itself, a deliberate transition from the profane to the sacred. Access is granted only to male visitors who secure a special permit. The diamonetarian and the number of daily pilgrims is strictly limited. The approach is typically made by boat from the town of Arnou. As the ferry skirts the western coastline, the first glimpse of the Holy Mountain emerges from the morning mist. The granite peak of Mount Athos, rising 2,033 meters into the sky, dominates the landscape. Its summit often shrouded in cloud, like a veil hiding divine mysteries. Lush, forested slopes cascade down to the sea, and nestled in coves and clinging to cliffsides are the monasteries. Their formidable, fortress-like walls, painted in hues of terracotta, ochre, and deep red, house centuries of uninterrupted prayer, artistic genius, and an unwavering commitment to a life lived for God. The organization of this monastic republic is a marvel of medieval continuity. 20 sovereign monasteries form the governing body, with the great monastery of Majesty Lapra, founded in 963 AD by Saint Athanasius the Athanite, holding the premier position. These 20 ruling houses are supported by numerous smaller settlements, skeets communities of hermits living in individual cells centered around a church, Kelia individual monastic houses with small chapels, Caliph smaller huts, and anchorite hermitages hidden in the most remote and inaccessible parts of the mountain. The overall administration is handled by the Holy Community, a council comprising representatives from each of the 20 monasteries, which meets in the capital, Karais. Yet, to reduce Mount Athos to its administrative structure is to miss its essence entirely. Its true secret lies not in its laws, but in its silence. It is in the rhythm of its days, dictated not by the clock but by the typikon, the liturgical rule that divides time into periods of communal prayer, solitary contemplation, and manual labor. The cycle of services Vespers Compline, the midnight office, Matins, and the divine liturgy structures the life of the monk, drawing him into a constant state of communion with God. This sacred routine, this aura, iti labora, pray and work, has remained virtually unchanged for a millennium. In a world hurtling towards an uncertain future, Athos stands as a bastion of permanence, a living museum of Byzantine tradition, and a sanctuary for the human soul seeking refuge from the noise and distraction of contemporary existence. The peninsula is a treasury of unimaginable wealth, though not of a material kind that the world typically values. Its libraries safeguard over 15,000 priceless manuscripts, illuminated gospels, and ancient philosophical texts, preserving the wisdom of antiquity and the early church. Its sacristies hold relics of saints, exquisite vestments woven with gold and silver thread, and countless icons, many of which are believed to be miracle-working. These are not merely artifacts behind glass. They are living elements of daily worship, imbued with a spiritual power that the faithful believe is palpable. But with such antiquity and isolation comes an aura of enigma. Whispers and legends are woven into the very fabric of Athenite life. There are tales of hermits possessing divine gifts, of elders with prophetic visions, and of spiritual battles fought in the heart of the wilderness. The mountain is said to be protected by the Mother of God herself, a shield against both spiritual and worldly evils. It is also a land of strict rules and profound asceticism, where the pursuit of hesychasm, the practice of inner stillness and continuous prayer, is the ultimate goal for many of its inhabitants. This intense focus on the inner life has created an environment where the supernatural is often considered part of the natural order. To venture onto Mount Athos is to step into a different dimension of reality. It is to witness a way of life that has vanished everywhere else, to hear the ancient Byzantine chant echo off Chenyan old walls, and to breathe air thick with the scent of incense and ancient stone. It is a journey to the heart of orthodoxy and to the depths of human devotion. The secrets of Mount Athos are not secrets to be uncovered by the curious outsider, but truths to be lived and experienced by those who dedicate their lives to its sacred soil. They are secrets of the spirit, guarded by time, faith, and the serene, watchful presence of the mountain itself. This introduction merely scratches the surface of this enigmatic world. The following chapters will delve deeper into the history that shaped it, the daily life that defines it, the art that beautifies it, and the profound spiritual legacy that ensures its enduring mystery. To understand the present-day reality of Mount Athos, one must journey back through the corridors of time, to an era of immense religious fervor and imperial patronage. The peninsula's history is not a linear chronicle, but a sacred narrative, beginning in the mists of Christian antiquity and solidifying during the golden age of the Byzantine Empire. While ascetic hermits and solitary monks likely inhabited the wild forested slopes of Athos as early as the 4th and 5th centuries, living in caves and crude huts in pursuit of solitude and prayer, the formal organization of monastic life began much later. The traditional date of 963 AD is etched into the Athenite identity as the foundational moment. In that year, a nobleman from Trebizond and former tutor to the Byzantine emperor, who had forsaken his privileged life for the ascetic path, arrived on the mountain. His name was Athanasius, and he would become known to history as Saint Athanasius with the financial and political backing of Emperor Nicephorus, a former comrade in arms. Athanasius undertook a monumental task, the construction of a large communal monastery dedicated to the Mother of God. This was the birth of the Great Lavra, the first and foremost of Athos's ruling monasteries. Athanasius's vision was revolutionary for its time. He established a coenobitic rule where monks lived, worked, prayed, and ate together in a structured community, holding all property in common and obeying an abbot. This stood in contrast to the eremitic life of the solitary hermits. The Lavra became a model, a blueprint for communal monastic life that would be replicated across the peninsula. Despite initial resistance from hermits, who saw this organized imperial-backed intrusion as a threat to their austere solitude, the Lavra flourished. Its success signaled the beginning of an unprecedented monastic boom. The 10th and 11th centuries witnessed an explosion of monastic foundation on Athos. Emperors, generals, and wealthy patrons from across the Byzantine world, seeking to secure divine favor for their souls and their empires, poured vast resources into the holy mountain. Georgian, Bulgarian, Russian, Serbian, Romanian, and Greek monks established their own national monasteries, transforming Athos into a truly international center of orthodoxy. The monastery was founded by Georgians and Hilander by Serbs, gifted by the emperor to Saint Sava and his father, King Stefan Nemanja, who himself took monastic vows there. This era also saw the formalization of the Athenite governance. The first charter, or typicon, was established, codifying the rules of life, the relationship between the different monastic houses, and affirming the absolute exclusion of women and female animals from the peninsular law that remains in force to this day. The prosperity of Athos was, however, inextricably linked to the fate of Constantinople. With the catastrophic Fourth Crusade in 1204 and the sack of the Byzantine capital by Latin crusaders, the empire fractured. Athos entered a long period of hardship and uncertainty. It fell under the sway of various overlords, including Catholic powers, and suffered from pirate raids, most notoriously by the Catalans, who plundered and burned monasteries, massacring monks and destroying priceless treasures. The monks, ever resilient, often paid heavy tributes to secure a fragile peace. This period tested the very mettle of the community, forcing it to rely on its inner spiritual strength and the support of Orthodox rulers from emerging Slavic nations, particularly Serbia, under Stefan Duzan, who became a powerful protector and benefactor. The restoration of the Byzantine Empire in 1261 brought a brief respite, but the final blow came with the rise of the Ottoman Turks. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 sent a seismic shock through the Orthodox world. One by one, the monastic dependencies and estates across the Balkans and Asia Minor, which provided essential income and supplies, were lost. In 1574, the Sultan formally annexed Athos into the Ottoman Empire. The monks were now a subject Christian population. They were forced to pay heavy annual taxes for their continued existence, and were often at the mercy of corrupt Ottoman officials. Yet, in a remarkable demonstration of political and spiritual savvy, the Athonite leadership managed to negotiate significant privileges. The sultans, recognizing the monks as no military threat and perhaps valuing them as a source of stability, granted them autonomy in their internal affairs, freedom of worship, and the preservation of their property and monasteries. This Ottoman period was a paradox. It was an age of economic decline and yet a surprising spiritual renaissance. Cut off from the West and living under non-Christian rule, Athos became a bastion of Orthodox identity. Its printing presses produced liturgical and theological books that were distributed throughout the Balkans and the Russian lands. Most significantly, it was during these centuries that the practice of hesychasm, refined by saints like Gregory Palamos in the 14th century, became the heart of Athonite spirituality. The prayer of the heart, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, repeated incessantly, became the inner rhythm of the mountain, a spiritual weapon against despair and a path to divine light. The 19th and early 20th centuries brought new challenges and changes. The Greek War of Independence in the 1820s drew Athos into the conflict, resulting in retaliatory massacres and pillaging by Ottoman troops. The incorporation of the peninsula into the modern Greek state in 1912 presented a new dynamic: how to integrate a theocratic, medieval republic into a modern European nation. The solution was a delicate balance, formalized in the Greek constitution, which granted Athos self-government under the sovereignty of the Greek state, with its special legal status and ancient privileges intact. The Russian Revolution of 1917 was another catastrophic event, severing the deep and nourishing connection to Russia and cutting off the vital flow of Russian pilgrims and patronage, which had once made the Russian monastery of St. Panteleimon the largest and wealthiest on the mountain. For decades, its vast buildings stood nearly empty, a ghostly monument to a lost world. Yet, like a phoenix, Athos has always found a way to renew itself. The 20th century saw a remarkable revival, with new brotherhoods, particularly from Greece and other Orthodox countries, repopulating decaying monasteries and breathing new life into the ancient stones. This resilience is the ultimate testament to its enduring secret, that its true foundation is not in imperial charters or stone walls, but in the unwavering faith of the men who have chosen for over 1,000 years to seek God in its silence. To an outsider, life on Mount Athos might appear as a monolithic existence of prayer and deprivation. In reality, it is a rich, complex, and finely tuned symphony of spiritual practice, communal living, and manual labor, all set within architectural marvels designed to facilitate the soul's journey toward God. The daily rhythm of an Athonite monk is a deliberate and conscious rejection of worldly tempo, a slow, intentional dance set to a celestial meter. The heart of this rhythm is the divine office, the cycle of services that mark the hours of day and night. For the monks, the day does not begin at dawn, but in the deepest dark of night, between 2 and 4 a.m. Depending on the monastery, a semitran is sounded. This is a long wooden beam struck rhythmically with a mallet, its echoing, percussive call reverberating through the silent courtyards and corridors, a primal sound summoning the brethren to prayer. It is followed by the metallic clang of the talenton, a suspended metal plate struck with a hammer. The monks rise from their brief sleep, dress in their simple black robes, and make their way through shadowy passages to the Catholicon, the main church of the monastery. The midnight office and Orthros matins are celebrated in the dark, vast church illuminated only by oil lamps and candles. The chanting is hypnotic and ancient, a cappella Byzantine hymns that have remained unchanged for centuries. The voices of the monks merge into a single, powerful instrument of praise, their phrases rising and falling in the intricate patterns of the 8 tones. This pre-dawn service, lasting 3 to 4 hours, is the most demanding and most cherished. It is a time of intense spiritual focus, a battle against sleep and distraction, where the mind is purified and prepared for the coming day. As the first light of dawn filters through the windows, the service culminates in the divine liturgy, where the Eucharist is celebrated. Following the liturgy, the monks file into the trapeza, the refectory, for their first meal of the day. This is no casual affair. As they stand silently at their ancient wooden tables, a reader from a high pulpit reads aloud from religious texts, lives of the saints, homilies of the church fathers, or scripture. The meal itself is simple, often consisting of bread, olives, vegetables, and pulses, with fish, wine, and oil permitted on feast days. The strict monastic rule governs the diet, which is vegan on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. This meal is as much a nourishment for the soul as for the body. The hours after the meal are dedicated to work. Diaconia, the Apostle Paul's edict, "He who does not work shall not eat," is taken seriously. Each monastery is a largely self-sufficient community. The work is diverse and essential, tending vast vegetable gardens and olive groves, baking bread, making wine, brewing Cipro, a strong spirit, woodworking, icon painting, bookbinding, restoring old manuscripts, cleaning, cooking, and welcoming pilgrims. This manual labor is not separate from prayer. It is itself a form of prayer when done with the right intention, practice of mindfulness and offering to God. The afternoon brings a period of rest, study, and private prayer before the cycle of services begins again, with Vespers, marking the end of the working day and the beginning of the evening. A light supper is served and Compline is chanted, after which the great silence descends upon the monastery. The monks retire to their cells for private prayer, study, and a few hours of sleep before the sementron calls them once more to begin the cycle anew. This is the unshakable typicon, the rule that structures existence, providing a framework that liberates the monk from the chaos of choice and allows him to focus entirely on his inner struggle, his ascesis. This life unfolds within the confines of structures that are both fortress and sanctuary. Athonite architecture is utilitarian, defensive, and profoundly theological. The monasteries are not built, they are sculpted into the landscape, their forms dictated by the need for protection and the requirements of spiritual life. The typical Athonite monastery is a large, rectangular, multi-storied fortress complex, with high, windowless outer walls facing the world, presenting a stern, impregnable face. Inside, however, these walls enclose a paradise, a chiasmos of breathtaking beauty and order. At the heart of every monastery is the Catholicon, often painted in deep red ochre. It is crowned by multiple domes, each bearing a cross, and its interior is a universe of sacred art. Every square inch of wall, ceiling, and pillar is covered in frescoes depicting scenes from the Bible, the lives of the saints, and the complex theological doctrines of the Orthodox faith. These are not mere decorations. They are a Bible for the illiterate, a theological education in color and form, surrounding the worshipper and drawing them into the narrative of salvation. The air is thick with the smell of centuries of incense, and the light is soft, filtered through stained glass or lamplight, glinting off gold and silver votive offerings. Arrayed around the central courtyard are the various buildings of the monastic city, the trapeza, often itself frescoed, the library, housing its priceless treasures, the archontoriki, the guest house, where pilgrims are received with cipro, locumi, and coffee, the bakery, the winery, and the workshops. A tall, elegant bell tower often rises above the complex, a later addition from the 17th century onwards. Perhaps the most distinctive feature is the fiale, a marble basin for holy water, often covered by an ornate canopy, standing in the center of the courtyard. Beyond the great monasteries, the landscape is dotted with other forms of habitation. Skeets resemble small villages, with individual hermitages, caliphs clustered around a central church. Even more remote are the kelia, isolated houses with a small garden, and the ultimate retreats, the hysicosteria, caves or rudimentary huts clinging to cliffsides or hidden in dense forests, accessible only by rope ladders or treacherous paths. Here, the anchorites live in near total isolation, seeing no one for weeks or months, engaged in constant prayer and fierce spiritual warfare. Their existence represents the most extreme and pure form of the Athonite ideal, the total withdrawal from the world, for the sake of total union with God. The daily life and architecture of Athos are thus perfectly fused. The buildings are designed to facilitate the rhythm of prayer and work, to protect the silence, and to educate the spirit. Together, they create a tangible reality where the boundary between earth and heaven feels thin, and the seeker can, for a moment, touch eternity. Beyond its rugged coastline and serene forests, Mount Athos guards a treasure of a different kind. It is not hidden in a single vault, but is diffused throughout its 20 monasteries, their dependencies, and their libraries. This is a treasure of immeasurable cultural and spiritual wealth. Ancient manuscripts, exquisite icons, sacred relics, and liturgical objects that have survived centuries of turmoil, making the peninsula one of the most significant repositories of Byzantine and post-Byzantine heritage in the world. This artistic and scholarly legacy is not a relic of a dead past, but a living, breathing part of the daily worship and identity of the Holy Mountain. The most profound of these treasures are the libraries. The cumulative archives of Mount Athos contain over 15,000 handwritten manuscripts, a number that staggers historians and theologians. These are not merely books, they are art objects and vessels of wisdom. They include priceless biblical codices, such as the 8th century Codex, Aethys Dionysiou, and countless liturgical scrolls. The pages of these manuscripts are works of art in themselves, meticulously inscribed on vellum or paper by monk scribes in exquisite calligraphy. Many are lavishly illuminated with miniatures and initials painted in gold and vibrant colors, depicting evangelists, saints, and biblical scenes with breathtaking skill. The content of these libraries is a vast ocean of knowledge. Alongside theological works, patristic writings, and hagiographies, they preserve classical Greek texts, the philosophies of Aristotle and Plato, the dramas of Sophocles, the medical texts of Hippocrates. During the European Renaissance, when such ancient knowledge was being rediscovered in the West, scholars from Italy traveled to Athos to study and copy these manuscripts, effectively transferring a vast body of classical learning back to the continent. Thus, the silent monks in their remote peninsula played an inadvertent but crucial role in shaping the intellectual landscape of modern Europe. Today, a monumental project of digitization is underway, slowly making these fragile treasures accessible to scholars worldwide without risking the originals to travel and exposure. If the manuscripts appeal to the mind, the icons speak directly to the soul. Iconography is the supreme art form of orthodoxy, and Athos is its living heart. An icon is not a religious painting. It is, in the theology of the Church, a window into heaven, a point of communion between the worshipper and the divine prototype it represents. The monasteries possess an unparalleled collection of icons spanning more than a millennium of artistic creation. Among them are some of the most revered and ancient icons in Christendom, many believed to be Asherah-poiton, made by human hands. Perhaps the most famous type is the Portaitesa, the gatekeeper icon of the Mother of God at the Aviron Monastery. According to tradition, this icon, fleeing the iconoclastic persecution in Byzantium, miraculously arrived from the sea by itself. When a monk retrieved it, it repeatedly moved back to the gate of the monastery, indicating it was to be its guardian, not hidden inside. Other monasteries boast their own miracle-working icons, such as the Axion Estiate, the Prototon Church in Kurais, which is the patron icon of the entire Holy Mountain. The artistic styles range from the abstract, ethereal figures of the Macedonian period to the more humanistic and emotional Paleologan style, and later, the intricate details of the Cretan school, whose greatest master, Theophanes the Greek, worked on Athos. The production of icons continues uninterrupted today. Within the monastery walls, iconography is a sacred vocation, undertaken with fasting and prayer. The process is governed by strict, canonical traditions, dictating proportions, themes, and colors passed down from master to apprentice for generations. The pigments are still often made from ground minerals and mixed with egg yolk, and the wood panels are prepared with reverence. For the monk iconographer, the act of painting is itself a form of prayer, a spiritual exercise in making the invisible visible. Equally awe-inspiring are the other liturgical arts cultivated on Athos. The sacristies of the monasteries are filled with objects of breathtaking craftsmanship, elaborately embroidered vestments, epitrachalia phellonia, woven with gold and silver thread, ornate chalices and censers made of precious metals, ancient reliquaries containing the remains of saints and martyrs, drawing pilgrims seeking blessing and healing. The art of Byzantine chant, an integral part of the liturgy, is also preserved here in its purest form. This monophonic, unaccompanied singing, with its complex systems of modes and its haunting, otherworldly sound, is considered a sonic icon, a theological expression in itself. This immense artistic heritage is intrinsically linked to the mountain's spiritual legacy. The ultimate purpose of every manuscript, icon, and chant is to facilitate theosis deification, or union with God. This is the central tenet of Athonite spirituality, most profoundly expressed in the practice of Hesychasm. This school of mystical prayer, championed in the 14th century by Saint Gregory Palamas, involves inner stillness, the control of the passions, and the continuous repetition of the Jesus prayer. The hesychasts sought to experience the uncreated light of God, the same light that illuminated Christ during his transfiguration on Mount Tabor. This is not an abstract concept on Athos. It is the daily pursuit of countless monks, especially the hermits in the desert-like wilderness of the mountain's interior. Theirs is a life of extreme asceticism, solitude, and ceaseless prayer, a spiritual battle against the logismoi, destructive thoughts that they believe stand between the human soul and God. The stories and writings of these elders, passed down through generations, form a vast oral and written tradition of spiritual guidance. A pilgrim might seek out an elder for a word of counsel, a logismoi, believing him to possess spiritual discernment. Diakrisis is gained through a lifetime of prayer. The art, the manuscripts, and the severe ascetic practices all serve this single, unifying goal, the transformation of the human person. The icons are venerated not for their aesthetic beauty, but as conduits of grace. The manuscripts are studied not for academic knowledge, but for spiritual guidance. The chanting is performed not for artistic performance, but as a collective offering of praise. On Mount Athos, beauty and asceticism are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin, two different paths leading to the same destination, the deification of man and the revelation of God as kingdom on earth. The treasure of Athos is, therefore, not locked away. It is on display in every liturgy, heard in every chant, seen in the eyes of a monk, and felt in the palpable silence that is the mountain's truest secret. To perceive Mount Athos as a place frozen in time, immune to the currents of the modern world, is to misunderstand its living nature. While it fiercely guards its ancient traditions, the holy mountain does not exist in a vacuum. It is a living organism, and like all living things, it must constantly navigate the tension between preservation and adaptation. The 21st century has brought a new set of challenges and questions to the shores of this forbidden peninsula, testing its resilience and forcing a contemplation of its future. One of the most pressing issues is demographic. The life of an Athonite monk is one of extreme austerity and commitment, a path that holds little appeal in a world dominated by consumerism, individualism, and instant gratification. While there has been a significant revival since the 1970s, repopulating monasteries that were on the brink of abandonment, the number of new novices is not always consistent. Some brotherhoods are thriving and even expanding, restoring ruins and building new cells, while others, particularly some of the smaller skeets and kelia, face an uncertain future as their aging populations are not replenished. The mountain's survival depends entirely on a continuous trickle of men willing to renounce the world, a choice that becomes ever more countercultural. The motivations are also shifting. While in the past, many came from traditional agrarian societies, today's novices might be former university professors, engineers, or artists, seeking meaning beyond material success. This demographic challenge is intertwined with the subtle, yet pervasive influence of technology. For over a millennium, Athos was a realm of deliberate isolation. Today, the digital world breaches its walls. The necessities of administration, communication with the outside world, and even the digitization of its own manuscripts require computers and internet connections. This creates a profound dilemma. How does a community dedicated to guarding the heart from distractions integrate tools that are inherently distracting? The rules are strict. Personal mobile phones are often forbidden or their use severely restricted, and internet access is typically limited to designated areas for essential tasks. Yet, the mere presence of this technology represents a significant change. The battle is no longer just against external distractions, but against an invisible, digital world that threatens the inner silence, hesychia. That is the very foundation of Athonite spirituality. Furthermore, Athos exists within a modern political and environmental context. Its relationship with the Greek state is generally harmonious, but complexities arise. European Union regulations on issues like building codes, environmental protection, and health and safety can sometimes clash with the mountain's autonomous status and traditional practices. The monks are often masters of pragmatic negotiation, finding ways to preserve their way of life while complying with essential modern standards. Environmental stewardship, however, is an area where ancient tradition and modern necessity align perfectly. The monks have always been caretakers of their natural surroundings, viewing the peninsula as the sacred garden of the Mother of God. Their organic farming practices, reliance on wood-burning stoves, and limited use of vehicles are now seen as models of sustainability. The prevention of forest fires is a critical concern, and the community is highly organized to protect its pristine ecosystem. In this sense, Athos stands as a rare sanctuary of biodiversity, its environment protected as much by its spiritual status as by any modern law. Perhaps the most significant external pressure comes from its own renown. The forbidden nature of Athos has made it an object of intense fascination. The number of pilgrims and visitors has swelled, facilitated by easier travel and the proliferation of information online. While this brings vital interaction and support, it also risks turning a spiritual center into a tourist destination. The monks walk a fine line between Christian hospitality, philoxenia, which is a sacred duty, and the need to protect the contemplative silence of their home. The strict entry system and the limited number of permits are crucial buffers, but the sheer volume of visitors constrain resources and alter the atmosphere. Yet, for all these challenges, the essence of Mount Athos remains unchanged. Its response to the modern world is not one of panic, but of discernment. The elders teach that the external forms of temptation change from the demons of the desert, described in ancient texts, to the digital distractions of today. But the inner nature of the spiritual struggle remains the same. The goal is still the purification of the heart. The future of Mount Athos, therefore, does not likely lie in radical change, but in a steadfast, thoughtful adherence to its core mission, while prudently managing external influences. It will continue to be a place of paradox, a beacon of eternal values in a changing world, a repository of ancient wisdom that inadvertently shaped modernity, and a forbidden place that exerts a powerful pull on the human spirit. Its ultimate secret, the source of its enduring mystery, is not something that can be found in a book or a relic. It is an experiential truth. It is the palpable presence of a living tradition, a continuous thread of prayer that has been unbroken for more than 1,000 years. It is the conviction that in the silence of the heart, away from the noise of the world, a human being can encounter God. This is the gift that Athos offers to the world, not by sending out missionaries, but by remaining itself a still point in a turning universe, a haven of silence in a cacophonous age, a forbidden peninsula that continues to whisper the secrets of eternity to those who have the ears to hear and the heart to seek. For the modern seeker, the journey to Mount Athos is more than a trip. It is a pilgrimage in the oldest and truest sense of the word, a physical undertaking with a spiritual goal. It is a process of stripping away, a gradual shedding of the world's noise and one's own identity to encounter something timeless. The experience of a pilgrim from the first application for the Diamonitarian to the moment he steps back onto the ferry is a microcosm of the Athonite struggle itself, a lesson taught not through lectures but through immersion in a different reality. The process begins with anticipation and a touch of bureaucracy. Securing the permit requires patience, a virtue that is the first lesson of the mountain. The pilgrim must relinquish control, accepting the dates granted and the itinerary shaped by the availability of beds in the monastery guesthouse. He packs simply: a backpack, a sleeping bag, a flashlight, and a water bottle. The modern world's comforts are deliberately left behind. The boat ride from Arnupolis is the definitive threshold. As the mainland recedes, a palpable shift in atmosphere occurs. The chatter of tourists fades, replaced by the sound of the sea and the contemplative silence of the monks and pilgrims on board. The first sight of the monasteries, their fortress walls rising sheer from the sea, inspires a sense of awe and reverence. This is not a landscape to be conquered, but to be humbly received. Upon landing at the port of Daphne, the pilgrim enters the rhythm of the mountain. Transportation is minimal. The primary mode of travel is on foot, along ancient stone paths that weave through chestnut forests and climb steep hillsides. This walking pilgrimage is fundamental. The physical exertion, the blisters, the sweat, and the stunning views around every corner become a form of prayer, a peripatetic liturgy. The body is engaged in the journey, reminding the pilgrim that the spiritual path is incarnational, involving the whole person. Hospitality, philoxenia, is a sacred duty on Athos. Upon arrival at a monastery, often just before the gates are locked for the night, the pilgrim is received by the guestmaster, Archanteris. He is offered a small glass of Sipiro, a spoonful of Lokumi Turkish delight, and a cup of strong Greek coffee. This ritual of welcome is performed with a quiet grace that immediately makes the traveler feel, not as a tourist, but as an honored guest, a brother in Christ. He is given a bed in the Arkantariki, usually a simple, Spartan room, and invited to the church for services. Participating in the all-night vigils is the centerpiece of the pilgrimage. For a visitor unaccustomed to the length, the language, and the posture of Orthodox worship, it can be a disorienting and physically demanding experience. Standing for hours in the dimly lit cathedral, surrounded by the haunting beauty of Byzantine chant and the flickering light of oil lamps, the mind's usual chatter begins to slow. Fatigue gives way to a strange alertness. The services are not performed for the pilgrims but with them. The pilgrim becomes a participant in the timeless work of the monastery. This is where the second great lesson is learned, the value of simply being present, without the need to achieve or understand anything intellectually. Meals in the trapeza are another profound experience. Eating in silence while listening to the sacred texts being read from the pulpit transforms a basic human need into a liturgical act. The simple, often meager food, eaten with gratitude, tastes like a feast. Conversations happen afterwards, in the courtyard or during walks. These are not casual chats. They are deep, meaningful exchanges with monks and other pilgrims from all over the world. Discussions that often touch on the ultimate questions of life, purpose, and faith. But beneath this surface of hospitality, beauty, and ritual, the pilgrim with discernment can sense the true, unseen reality of Athos, the constant spiritual battle. The monks refer to it as the ascesis, the inner struggle. The tranquility of the environment is not an end in itself, but the necessary condition for this warfare. The battle is fought in the secret recesses of the heart against what the fathers call the logismoitha intrusive, passionate thoughts that are the seeds of sin. The weapon is the Jesus prayer, repeated silently with every breath, a constant invocation of divine mercy that purifies the mind and guards the heart. The hermits in the wilderness are the mountain's special forces, engaged in the most intense front of this battle. Their life of radical solitude and austerity is not a rejection of humanity, but a love for it so great that they willingly take on this struggle on behalf of the entire world. They are the invisible engine of Athos, the ones who embody the mountain's ultimate purpose most fully. The stories of their discernment, their clairvoyance, and their fierce struggles with demonic temptations are woven into the very fabric of Athonite lore, a reminder that the most real things are often the ones that cannot be seen. A pilgrimage to Athos, therefore, is an invitation to witness and, in a small way, partake in this battle. It is to understand that the beauty, the silence, and the order are not for aesthetic pleasure, but are tools for a cosmic struggle between light and darkness within the human soul. The pilgrim leaves as he came, by boat, but he is not the same person. He carries with him the echo of the silence, the memory of the chant, and the taste of the simple bread. He has been granted a glimpse into a different way of being, a reality where God is the central and immediate fact of existence. The mountain does not provide easy answers, but it offers a far greater gift. The experience of the question itself lived out in the daily rhythm of a community that has for 1,000 years staked its entire existence on the reality of the world to come. The secret of Mount Athos is not a puzzle to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. It endures because it answers a deepest, often unspoken, human longing, for silence instead of noise, for community instead of alienation, for tradition instead of trend, and for a connection to the eternal that transcends the fleeting concerns of the age. It remains forbidden not to be exclusive, but to protect the fragile, precious conditions required for this great work of prayer to continue. It is a beacon, a testament, and a promise. and it will continue to whisper its secrets as long as there are men who are willing to listen in the silence. To speak of Mount Athos as a single entity is to overlook the rich tapestry of distinct communities that comprise it. Each of the 20 ruling monasteries possesses its own unique character, history, architecture, and spiritual flavor. They are like individual city-states, united under a common law and purpose, yet each offering a different window into the Athonite world. Exploring a few of these in detail reveals the incredible diversity within the mountain's unity. The Great Lavra, Majesty Lavra, as the oldest and foremost monastery, the Great Lavra is the spiritual anchor of Athos. Founded in 963 by Saint Athanasius the Athonite, it set the template for the Coenobitic system. Its architecture is a breathtaking testament to Byzantine imperial patronage. The Catholican, dedicated to the Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, is the oldest on the mountain. Its frescoes a masterclass in Macedonian school art. The monastery's treasury is among the richest, housing incredible relics, vestments, and icons, including the famed miracle-working icons of the Caucus Elisa and the Lavra's library is a universe of knowledge, containing over 2,000 manuscripts and more than 20,000 printed books. The atmosphere here is one of immense gravity and tradition, the weight of its history palpable in every stone. It is a bustling community, a large brotherhood maintaining the full, rigorous cycle of services, and a vast estate with gardens, workshops, and dependencies. Vatapedi Monastery. If the Lavra is the historical primus, Vatapedi is often considered the largest, wealthiest, and most architecturally grand. Its vast, rectangular complex resembles a small fortified town, with numerous chapels and buildings within its walls. The central courtyard, with its magnificent marble fiali, is one of the most impressive sights on Athos. Vatapedi is a center of learning and scholarship, running a well-known ecclesiastical academy within its grounds. It is also home to a plethora of the most venerated relics on the mountain, including the holy girdle of the Theotokos Virgin Mary, which is believed to have healing powers and is brought out for veneration annually. The Brotherhood is known for its dynamism and its extensive outreach and publishing efforts, making it one of the most influential monasteries in the modern Orthodox world. Simonopetra Monastery, Simonos, Petras, perched precariously on a vertiginous cliff face 330 meters above the sea. Simonopetra is the architectural marvel of Athos, founded in the 13th century by Saint Simon the Athonite, who, according to tradition, was guided to the spot by a miraculous light. The monastery seems to defy gravity. Its multi-storied wooden balconies cascade down the rock, offering breathtaking, dizzying views of the Aegean. A devastating fire in 1891 destroyed much of the original structure and its priceless treasures, and it was rebuilt on a grander scale. The current Brotherhood is known for its strict observance of the liturgical life and its renowned choir, whose recordings of Byzantine chant have brought the sacred music of Athos to a global audience. Life at Simonopetra requires a certain head for heights and a spirit of unwavering faith, quite literally built on a rock. St. Panteleimon Monastery, Rossokon, the Russian monastery, on Athos is a monument to a bygone era and a symbol of renewal. In the late 19th century, it was the largest and most populous monastery on the mountain, supported by the fervent piety and vast resources of Tsarist Russia. Its enormous, onion-domed cathedral, built to accommodate thousands of worshippers, stands as a starkly Russian architectural statement amidst the Byzantine landscape. The Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 severed its lifeline, leading to decades of decline and near abandonment. For much of the 20th century, it was a hauntingly beautiful ghost town. However, since the fall of the Soviet Union and the revival of orthodoxy in Russia, there has been a remarkable resurgence. A new brotherhood, though small compared to its past glory, is tirelessly working to restore the vast complex. The sounds of church Slavonic chant now once again echo through its immense church, a powerful testament to the enduring transnational appeal of the Holy Mountain. Xenophontos Monastery. This monastery offers an example of the layered history of Athos. It possesses two Catholicas side by side, a rare feature. The old church is dedicated to St. George and contains 16th century frescoes by the renowned Cretan school iconographer Antonios Anou. Larger church is dedicated to St. Demetrius and was built in the 19th century. Xenophontos is particularly famed for its two large mosaic icons of St. George and St. Demetrius, dating from the 14th century. which are considered among the most important artworks on the mountain. The library holds a significant collection, including over 300 manuscripts. The community is known for its warm hospitality and its beautiful well-tended gardens that run down to the sea. These 5 examples merely hint at the diversity. There is Iverin, the Georgian monastery, home to the Porta Tisa icon; Hilander, the Serbian heart of Athos, with its vast forests and vineyards; Dionysu, stunningly built on a narrow rock high above the sea, famed for its frescoes by the Cretan master Dazortzis; and Isfigmenou, which remains a source of controversy due to its break with the ecumenical patriarchate. Each monastery is a world unto itself, with its own stories, saints, and struggles. The choice of which monastery a pilgrim visits shapes his experience of the mountain. A stay at the Lavra is an immersion in deep history; at Vartopedi, in grandeur and scholarship; at Simenopetra, in awe-inspiring beauty and ascetic rigor; and at Rossicon, in witnessing a phoenix rising from the ashes. Together, they form a symphony, sometimes harmonious, sometimes with dissonant notes, but always united in their common goal: the unceasing prayer for the world that rises from the garden of the Mother of God. The true heart of Mount Athos does not beat within the stone walls of its monasteries, but within the chests of the men who inhabit them. The monks are the living soul of the mountain, the vessels through which its ancient traditions are preserved and its spiritual fire is kept alive. Understanding their journey from the first stirring of a vocation to becoming an elderist, to understand the very essence of Athos, it is a path of radical transformation, a deliberate and often painful process of deconstructing the worldly self, to allow the emergence of a new creation in Christ. The journey begins in the world, with a sense of divine discontent. A man may feel a profound emptiness amidst material success, a sense that the world offers only transient answers to eternal questions. This initial calling is often described as a divine pull, a homesickness for a place one has never been. After a period of preparation, which may involve visiting Athos as a pilgrim and seeking counsel, he arrives at the gates of a monastery, not as a guest, but as a candidate. He is received, not with celebration, but with sober discernment. The initial period is one of testing, both for the newcomer and the community. He becomes a novice, placed under the guidance of a spiritual father, Duran. The novice is assigned manual labor, cleaning, gardening, working in the kitchen or bakery. This is not punishment. It is the first lesson in humility and obedience, the 2 pillars of monastic life. He must learn to subjugate his own will, his intellect, and his desires to the will of his elder and the rhythm of the community. For a modern man, accustomed to independence and self-determination, this is the most difficult hurdle. He must learn to see not with his own eyes, but through the teachings of the Church Fathers. He must learn to pray not only with his lips, but with his every action. The life is physically demanding and psychologically intense. The hours of sleep are short, the food is simple, the prayers are long, and the silence is profound. Many do not last, realizing the cost is higher than they are willing to pay. This period of testing can last for several years. If both the novice and the community discern a genuine vocation, he is tonsured a monk. The ceremony of tonsure is one of the most moving and solemn rites on Athos. It is described as a second baptism, a death and rebirth. The candidate is clothed in a black habit, his hair is cut in the shape of a cross, and he is given a new name, signifying the death of his old identity and his birth into a new life. He takes vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, forever binding himself to God and his spiritual father. Yet, this is not the end of the journey, but the true beginning. The newly tonsured monk, now a rasiphore or stavrophore, depending on the level of vows, continues his inner work with renewed intensity. The focus shifts deeper inward, to the guarding of the heart. His battlefield is his own mind, using the tools of the Jesus prayer, confession of thoughts to his elder, fasting, and vigil. He wages war against the logis moith, the passionate thoughts of vanity, anger, lust, and despair that arise from the ego. This is the unseen ascesis that defines the Athonite life. It is a constant, subtle struggle to purify the soul from the passions and achieve a state of dispassion, apatheia, and inner stillness. Over decades of this relentless spiritual labor, a monk may, by the grace of God, gradually acquire virtues, profound humility, unceasing prayer, and unconditional love. He may develop spiritual gifts, discernment, diakrisis, the ability to see into the hearts of others and offer precisely the guidance they need, clairvoyance, and a potent capacity for intercessory prayer. Such a man becomes an elder. The elder is the most precious resource of Athos. He is not an administrator or an elected official. His authority is purely spiritual, earned through a life of humility and struggle. He is a living repository of the Philokalia, the collected wisdom of the Church Fathers. Pilgrims and younger monks flock to him for a word, a piece of counsel that can cut through a lifetime of confusion and sin. His cell is a clinic for souls. He listens not just to words, but to the silence between them, diagnosing the spiritual illness and prescribing a remedy, often a specific prayer rule, a practice of humility, or an act of obedience. The wisdom of the elders is rarely theoretical. It is practical, direct, and grounded in compassion, born of their own experience of failure and grace. A famous story tells of a young monk complaining to his elder about the temptations he faced in his cell. The elder responded, "You wish to cast out the one who has been living there for 30 years. Be patient, and little by little, evict him through prayer." Another elder, when asked how he could bear the constant stream of visitors seeking his counsel, replied, "I see not a man, but a soul for whom Christ died." The presence of these elders is the magnetic core of Athos. They are the proof that the path works, that the struggle is not in vain. They embody the secret that the mountain guards, that through grace and human cooperation, a human being can be transformed from a creature of passion and ego into a vessel of divine love and peace. Their lives are a silent sermon more powerful than any book. They do not seek followers. They seek to lead souls to Christ. When an elder dies, it is said to be like a library burning down. Yet the tradition continues as the wisdom is passed from heart to heart, from elder to disciple in an unbroken chain that stretches back to the Desert Fathers and ensures that the secret of the inner life, the science of the soul, is never lost. On Mount Athos, time is not a linear progression toward an unknown future, but a sacred circle, a cyclical participation in the eternal mysteries of faith. The rhythm of a monk's day expands into the rhythm of the week, the month, and the year, all structured by the typikon, the liturgical rulebook that dictates every prayer, hymn, and ceremony. This calendar is not merely a schedule of events, it is the very framework of reality, designed to draw the human soul into the life of Christ and the saints. The annual cycle on the Holy Mountain is a profound experience of what theologians call liturgical time, where past events of salvation become mystically present. The year is anchored by the great feasts of the Orthodox Church, each celebrated with immense solemnity and beauty. The preparation for these feasts is as important as the celebration itself, marked by periods of fasting. The most significant of these preparatory periods is Great Lent, the 7-week journey toward Pascha, Easter. On Athos, Lent is observed with unparalleled strictness. The daily services become longer and more penitential. The diet is reduced to its most austere, xerophagy, meaning uncooked food, bread, fruit, nuts, vegetables, without oil or wine, except on weekends when oil and wine are permitted. The mood is one of somber introspection, a collective effort of repentance. The culmination is Holy Week, a day-by-day, hour-by-hour, liturgical reenactment of Christ's Passion. The services are long, emotionally intense, and theatrically powerful, with processions, readings, and hymns that immerse the entire community in the drama of salvation. Then, at the stroke of midnight on Holy Saturday, the absolute darkness of the church is pierced by a single flame. The priest lights the paschal candle and chants, "Come, receive the light from the light that is never overtaken by night, and glorify Christ, who is risen from the dead." The light is passed from candle to candle until the entire Catholicon is ablaze with the flame of the resurrection. The mood explodes from sorrow into unrestrained joy. The fast is broken with a magnificent feast, often featuring roasted lamb and rich cheese, and the triumphant hymn, "Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life," is sung repeatedly for 40 days. The experience of Pascha on Athos, after the intense austerity of Lent, is a visceral, overwhelming explosion of light and life that leaves an indelible mark on every pilgrim and monk. Another unique Athonite celebration is the Feast of the Transfiguration at the monastery of the same name, Metamorphosis. This event, commemorating Christ's revelation of his divine glory on Mount Tabor, holds special significance on the Holy Mountain, itself a place of divine light and revelation. The services are particularly magnificent, focusing on the theme of the uncreated light that the Hesychist saints sought to perceive. But beyond these universal Christian feasts, each monastery celebrates its own patron saint's day panegyric. This is the highest point of the year for that particular brotherhood. For example, the Lavera celebrates the Annunciation March 25th. Vatapedi celebrates the Annunciation as well. Saint Pantaleimon celebrates its patron saint July 27th, and Simonopatra celebrates the Nativity of Christ, December 25th. 4 weeks in advance, the monastery prepares. The entire complex is cleaned and polished. Pilgrims arrive from all over the Orthodox world. The all-night vigil is even more elaborate, often led by bishops and attended by hundreds. The following day, a grand meal is served in the trapezar to all present monks, pilgrims, and workers alike. It is a day of intense spiritual joy, communal solidarity, and lavish hospitality, a foretaste of the heavenly banquet. Interwoven with these feasts are the frequent fasts. Nearly half the year is spent in some form of fasting. In addition to Great Lent, there is the Nativity Fast, 40 days before Christmas, the Apostles' Fast, variable length after Pentecost, the Dormition Fast 2 weeks before the Feast of the Dormition on August 15th, and every Wednesday and Friday throughout the year commemorating Christ's betrayal and crucifixion. This rhythm of feasting and fasting teaches the monk and the pilgrim a crucial spiritual lesson, that joy is heightened by prior restraint, and that the mastery of the body's desires is the gateway to the soul, as freedom, the stomach, the fathers say, is the primary battlefield of the soul. The daily, weekly, and annual cycles merge to create a distinct experience of time. There is no rush on Athos, because the goal is not to get somewhere, but to be fully present in the current moment, which is always charged with the potential for encountering God. A monk may not know the exact date in the secular calendar, but he knows exactly what week of the Triodian it is, what saint is being commemorated, and what tone the hymns will be in. This immersion in liturgical time creates a profound sense of peace and stability. The anxieties of the outside world, the news cycles, the political dramas, the economic fluctuations fade into irrelevance against the backdrop of this eternal drama of sin and redemption, fasting and feasting, death and resurrection. The year on Athos, therefore, is a continuous school of virtue. It is a teacher that uses all the senses, the taste of Lenten food and Paschal cheese, the smell of incense and beeswax candles, the sound of mournful Lenten hymns and triumphant Paschal cheers, the sight of somber black vestments and brilliant gold epitaphia, the physical fatigue of all-night vigils, and the lightness of a soul unburdened by confession. It is a holistic education aimed at one goal: to reshape a human being entirely, to reorient his entire existence around worship, and to make him a citizen of heaven while still on earth. This is the ultimate secret of the Athonite calendar. It is a machine for deification, turning time itself into a sacrament. As the boat pulls away from the shore of Mount Athos, the fortress-like monasteries gradually recede into the haze, becoming once more silent sentinels on a forbidden coast. For the pilgrim, the return journey is fraught with a sense of dislocation. The world he re-enters seems louder, faster, and more fragmented than the one he left just days before. He carries back not souvenirs, but sensory memories, the echo of Byzantine chant, the scent of incense and ancient wood, the taste of simple bread and wine, and the profound, unsettling gift of silence. The experience often defies immediate explanation. Its meaning works itself out slowly in the heart, over months and years, a seed planted in fertile ground. In an age of radical secularization, it stands as a theocratic republic. In a culture obsessed with the new, it venerates the ancient. In a society that often views boundaries as limitations to be overcome, it proudly and defiantly maintains its own. This very anachronism is the source of its power and its relevance. It is a living question mark against the assumptions of modernity, a place that operates on a completely different set of values and thus offers a radical alternative, a silent critique of the spirit of the age. Its greatest challenge, as it has been for centuries, remains internal: the preservation of its spiritual fire. The external threats, political upheavals, economic pressures, technological intrusion are merely variations on themes the mountain has faced before. Pirates have been replaced by internet cables. Ottoman tax collectors by EU regulations, but the core struggle remains unchanged. The true danger would be a cooling of zeal, a compromise of the ascetic ideal, a slow transformation from a vibrant center of hesychia into a museum of monasticism or a curated spiritual tourist destination. The vigilance against this is constant and is the primary occupation of its elders and abbots. Yet, there is also profound hope. The continued arrival of young, educated men from across the globe, willing to renounce everything for a life of prayer, suggests that the mountain's magnetic pull is as strong as ever. They are not fleeing the world out of fear, but are seekers drawn by a positive vision of a reality, more real and more fulfilling than the one offered by contemporary society. They come with doctorates in theology and computer science, with skills in medicine and engineering, and they willingly submit to a life of obedience, manual labor, and all-night prayer. This influx of new blood ensures that the traditions are not merely preserved as fossils, but are lived and revitalized by each generation. The future of Athos will likely be a continued negotiation between necessary preservation and prudent adaptation. The digitization of its manuscripts is a perfect example, using cutting-edge technology to protect and share its ancient wisdom without compromising the silence of its reading rooms. The brotherhoods will continue to debate the boundaries of technology, the best ways to manage pilgrims, and how to engage with a world that is increasingly curious about their secluded existence. But the essence will not, and cannot, change. The mountain's raison d'etre is to be unchanged, to be the still point in the turning world. The monks believe that the stability of the world itself, in ways unseen, is connected to the prayers offered in this sacred garden. Whether one shares this belief or not, the mere existence of such a place has value. It stands as a testament to the human spirit's capacity for dedication, its hunger for the transcendent, and its ability to build a society based not on consumption and competition, but on prayer and love. The secret of Mount Athos, then, is not a single hidden truth, but a multifaceted reality. It is the secret of inner stillness, discovered in the heart of the spiritual battle. It is the secret of community found in silence and solitude. It is the secret of joy discovered through austerity and obedience. It is the secret of time mastered through the cyclical rhythm of worship. It is the secret of beauty created not for exhibition but for divine glory. It is a secret that is not so much told as it is witnessed. It is witnessed in the lined face of an elder who has spent 60 years in prayer. It is witnessed in the vibrant frescoes of a 10-year-old church. It is witnessed in the precise cadence of a chant that has not altered in a millennium. It is witnessed in the hospitality offered to a stranger, and it is witnessed in the overwhelming silence that descends upon the peninsula at night, a silence that is not an absence of sound, but a palpable presence, the presence of a prayer that began long before we were born and will continue long after we are gone. And in doing so, it keeps a door open for all of humanity, a door out of the noise and into the silence, out of time and into eternity, offering not answers, but an invitation to seek. And that, perhaps, is the greatest secret of all. To truly grasp the essence of Mount Athos, one must move beyond the historical facts, architectural descriptions, and liturgical cycles, and into the realm of personal, often ineffable, experience. It is in the countless small encounters, the fleeting moments of clarity, and the pervasive sense of an unseen world that the mountain reveals its most profound secrets to the pilgrim. These are not documented in official chronicles, but are passed down as oral tradition, shared in whispers between pilgrims, and held in the silent hearts of those who have been touched by its grace. A pilgrim's day is punctuated by these moments of unexpected grace. It might happen during a pre-dawn service, standing shoulder to shoulder with monks in the dim light. Fatigue is overwhelming. The body aches from the hard bed and the hours of standing. The mind is a whirlwind of distraction. And then, a single line of a hymn, perfectly chanted, seems to pierce through the fog. For a split second, time suspends. The words are no longer ancient Greek, but a living language of the soul, speaking directly of a beauty and a love that is heartbreakingly real. In that moment, the struggle makes sense. The fatigue becomes an offering, and the pilgrim understands, intuitively, why the monks consider this the most important work in the world. Another encounter might occur on the long footpaths between monasteries, Walking alone, with only the sound of one's own breath and the cicadas in the heat, the mind gradually empties of its usual clutter. The landscape itself becomes a prayer. The gnarled trunk of an ancient olive tree speaks of resilience, the relentless sun of divine scrutiny, the cool spring water of spiritual refreshment. A fellow traveler monk on an errand, or another pilgrim might fall into step. Conversations in this context are stripped of small talk. They quickly delve into matters of the heart, struggles with faith, the search for meaning, the pain of loss. There is a raw honesty here, enabled by the anonymity and the shared purpose of the journey. The advice given is not complex theology, but practical wisdom. Pray simply. Do not judge yourself. Thank God for everything. The most powerful encounters are often with the monks themselves, not in formal interviews, but in spontaneous interactions. The guest master, who offers a weary pilgrim an extra blanket with a silent, knowing smile. The old gardener who pauses his work to bless a passerby with a sign of the cross. The young novice whose eyes shine with a joy that seems utterly incongruous with his austere surroundings. These men are not ethereal beings. They are practical, often humorous, and bear the marks of their own struggles. Yet, they carry a palpable peace, a stability of soul that is the direct result of their warfare against the passions. They are living proof that the path, though narrow, leads to a genuine freedom. Beneath these visible interactions lies the constant, unseen reality that the monks believe is the true substance of their life, the spiritual battle. Athos is not just a peaceful retreat, it is a front line. The serene atmosphere is won through daily, hourly combat against invisible forces of temptation and despair. The monks speak of this matter factly. A hermit in his remote cell might battle intense loneliness and demonic thoughts. A monk in a Coenobitic monastery might struggle with anger towards a brother or pride in his own obedience. The Jesus prayer is their constant weapon, a spiritual sword wielded in the mind. This unseen warfare lends a certain weight to the Athonite air. It is a place where the metaphysical is considered more real than the physical, where the struggle for the soul is the primary occupation. This belief in the unseen extends to the divine. Miracles are not treated as anomalous events, but as part of the natural order for those with faith. The stories are legion, icons that stream fragrant oil myrrh, elders who have foreknowledge of events, prayers that bring about miraculous healing. The most common miracle reported by pilgrims is one of inner transformation. A burden lifted, a deep-seated anxiety quieted, a long-held resentment dissolved, without any obvious cause other than the atmosphere of prayer and the experience of the sacraments. Ultimately, a pilgrimage to Athos is a journey into a different state of consciousness. It is an invitation to slow down, to be present, to listen, and to pay attention to the inner world with the same intensity we usually reserve for the outer. The mountain functions as a giant hesychasterion, a hermitage for the soul, offering the conditions, silence, beauty, community, and tradition where this inner work can take place. The pilgrim leaves, but the echo of the experience remains. The silence of Athos becomes an inner silence that he can access amidst the noise of his life. The memory of the services becomes a touchstone for beauty. The face of a kind elder becomes a reminder of unconditional love. The mountain's greatest secret is that it gives the pilgrim not what he wants, but what he needs, a glimpse of his own soul, reflected in the tranquil waters of its timeless existence. It sends him back into the world, not to escape it, but to transform his little corner of it with the peace he has encountered. The Forbidden Peninsula, therefore, is not a place of exclusion, but a source of healing whose effects, though hidden, are meant to ripple out into the whole world, one healed heart at a time.